A couple of weeks ago, I preached from John 11, and I preached about the death of Lazarus and Jesus' surprising saying, I am the resurrection and the life. Now, we didn't have time for it on that Sunday, but what happens afterwards in that passage is really interesting as well. And I wanted to read along just a little farther in this passage than we got to on that Sunday. So before, in the service, we talked about the discussion John has with Martha. After that text, he then speaks with Mary as well, where I'm going to pick up reading at verse 33. We see Jesus' reaction to all that is going on. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, See how he loved him. So you've probably heard reference to this part of the text before as well, especially verse 35, which is often referenced as the, quote, shortest verse in the Bible. Indeed, in many translations, it's translated as simply the words, Jesus wept. Here it's expanded a little bit to Jesus began to weep, but either way, it's a very tightly caught verse. Now, the verses were added much later than the Bible's writings. They don't have really any particular meaning other than just helping us be able to organize and reference specific parts of the Bible. So the shortness of this verse is not necessarily very important. But the content of it is. Jesus is out there crying. Now, a lot of times people think of the Gospel of John as the Gospel which has sort of the most divine Jesus, the one who seems most above and away from the world around him. In this case, he's about to perform one of the most remarkable miracles of his whole ministry. He is about to raise a man from the dead. Clearly a divine action. But it's paired with this very seemingly human reaction of crying. It says that he is greatly disturbed in his spirit. This death touches Jesus. What does this tell us about who God is? God, we know, is the kind of God who loves us. But a lot of times when we think about that, we translate it into this very sort of myopic, over-the-top, well, he just loves. But God is much deeper than just some sort of vague force of love. It's personal. And in this text, in verse 35, we see how personal the love of God is. That when an individual person, Lazarus, dies, and when Lazarus' friends and family are weeping and mourning for him, Jesus joins them in that mourning. God is not a God who simply loves us from far off, or who just loves us in our triumphs and our victories. God loves through all parts of our lives. And that means that in the hard times, in the times when we want to weep or are just completely out of tears, God is not only there with us, but like Jesus is doing in this verse, God cries with us. God feels not the same things that we feel, but God feels with us because God loves us. In the same way that we mourn the loss of a friend, or the way that When someone we love is hurting, we hurt with them. God feels with us. God desires to be close to humanity and loves humanity in such a complete way that although God could be cut off entirely from any sort of human pain, because God loves us, here, God weeps with us and for our losses. And that is something distinctive and beautiful that we often don't think about. A God who shares not only our joy, but our sorrow as well.